Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to another player on the trade block that could be a potential target for the Toronto Raptors, and this is a 7'1" old school center. You saw it in the thumbnail. Jusuf Nurkic is being made available by the Portland Trailblazers alongside of Robert Covington, and Nurkic is a guy, right? Obviously, the Raptors fell in love with a Jonas Valanciunas. Similar type player, 7'1", finishes in the lane. Jonas is a better three-point shooter now, death taxes in JV, but Nurkic is definitely a guy that can get you buckets around the rim, was the backbone to the Blazers defense for a lot of years, and I think there's some packages the Raptors can throw back to the Portland Trailblazers to make this one happen. Ryker, what are your thoughts on potentially targeting Jusuf Nurkic?
Boy, I'll tell you, off the rip, I'm not as excited about this one as the news of Jeremy Grant being on the trade block. Some of the highlights or lowlights for me is, you said it, 21% three-point shooter. Now, I'd be willing to sacrifice some three-point shooting from a big man if he had good playmaking like Marc Gasol, but he's not really that guy either, about 2.5 assists per game. The other thing I don't love is that he's on an expiring contract, $12 million. That's up at the end of this season. And I don't know what kind of money he's going to want next year, nor if he's going to want to play north of the border in Toronto. Finally, 27 years old, not the worst age, right? That's, I think, same age as Jeremy Grant, as a matter of fact. But there's maybe better players out there that we could leverage our young guys for. Now, that said, I am very intrigued. Proper 7-footer, good defender, played on a pretty good team, career playoff guy, can bring some veteran presence. Ben, where are you falling on the spectrum of not wanting him to wanting him?
Well, Ryker, researching for this video, looking at his stats, his contract, I'm saying he could potentially be a really nice target for the 2022 offseason. Right, bring him in, give him a mid-sized contract, play him at center. But, the Raptors obviously want to make the playoffs this year. We'll see what happens after the trade deadline. Are we going to have to break out the kazoos? Who really knows, right? But as of right now, we should all be on board team playoffs, right? That's the only direction, the only way to look at it. And getting a big center in there would help. Do they necessarily have to close games? Not necessarily, right? It could be matchup dependent, but when we face off against those big centers, it's valuable to have a guy that can play defense, score around the rim, rebound for you, right? Because we're inconsistent on night in, night out basis in terms of rebounding. So Nurkic could come in and provide some value. But Ryker, as you said, expiring contract. So you don't have him locked in. You don't have that guarantee that he's going to be back on your roster, right? Injury history with Jusuf Nurkic is a legitimate thing. Felt like
never played 82 games in his whole 10-year career.
Yeah, and much less.
No, he hasn't played for 10 years. He's only played since 2014, 2015.
Yeah, well, other than 82 games, it feels like he hasn't played close to that, at least in recent seasons. He's been missed half the years and most of the past seasons. So, not really that guy that you can rely on to be on the court night in, night out. So that's another gripe you have against him. And the floor spacing is just not there, right? He's not going to be a floor spacing big man, right? Obviously, you're not expecting to be a big lumbering center. JV is the exception, rare death tax and JV guy, but he has all the negatives of the JV without the sort of floor spacing ability. He doesn't have the same sort of touch that a Jonas had. And, we gave away Jonas, obviously, who has a lot more potential, I'd say, as an upper level Jusuf Nurkic, but, still has a lot of similar flaws, particularly with the mobility, but he is a decent defender in terms of being the backlog of your defense and does fill a specific hole. So there's a lot of negatives, but he does fill some positives, Ryker. So that's why you and I have sort of, if we're breaking out the trade machine for a potential Jusuf Nurkic deal, we don't think we'd have to give up too much value to send back to Portland. And we have a lot of guys. Portland, Damian Lillard came out and said he wants to play with mobile wing defenders. Now, he named the Aaron Gordons of the world, the Ben Simmons.
Wait, who?
The Aaron Gordons, the Ben Simmons, those types of players.
Aaron Gordon. I thought you said Eric Gordon. If he was asking to play with old Eric Gordon, then I think he has his priorities out of line, but that makes more sense. Aaron Gordon, Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon, Ben Simmons, those types of players, mobile, athletic. Well, the Raptors have a multitude of long, wiry defenders that could fill some holes down there with Portland Trailblazers. What trades do you got cooking here, Ryker, for Jusuf Nurkic?
Yeah, so $12 million. I'm looking at Boucher and one of our young guys. So you pitched out before the podcast started, Utah. Now putting that man's name into the mix might be insulting to some of our viewers because they're all pretty high on his potential, his defense, which has been very good, might I add. Mm-hmm. Now his offensive consistency hasn't been there, but I could see a guy like him being intriguing to the Portland Trailblazers. Now, you can't really go the Precious Achiuwa route, I wouldn't think, because he's the farthest away from win now. And if they still want to stay competitive in the West, don't see why this would make sense for Portland. So a guy like Utah, somebody who has immediate impact, same with Chris Boucher, that could be enough to get it done, especially with how Nurkic is an expiring contract and not a ton of teams I'm going to see take that gamble on him.
Well, Ryker, first things first about Precious, right? You can do it for Jeremy Grant because he is a legit bucket getter, right? For a wing guy, he can score a multitude of ways, plays a lot of defense, all that sort of stuff. But Jusuf Nurkic doesn't have close the potential, right? Like injury-wise, all that sort of stuff. Precious is the more valuable piece, and he's not even worth it in terms of getting that immediate realized gains for the Portland Trailblazers. So it doesn't make sense to throw Precious in a deal for either squad. Malachi Flynn obviously is a young guy with potential, right? We're excited about Malachi Flynn, the Crimson Flynn. However, Anthony Simons is there in Portland, Dame, CJ, a lot of small guards. Norman Powell's a smaller guard, even though he's got that long wingspan, right? No real sense for a smaller guard going back there to Portland. So it makes sense for Boucher because hopefully, and he's been playing better as of late, he can redeem his value. 13 points per game last season. Maybe they see that in Boucher. But would you throw in a Kem Birch for Jusuf Nurkic? That's where I'd get a little bit hesitant. I know Kem Birch has been injured a lot, so we haven't seen him, but he was really coming into his own with his last few games, the Toronto Raptors, before he went down.
Yeah, to me, Kem Birch looked like the better center of the two on our roster. But, you know, for all cards out on the table, I'm probably not putting out a lot. Like, I'm not showing that I'm that interested in Nurkic to the Trailblazers. I'm going to give a low ball offer and see if they bite at all. And then maybe I'll go up a little bit. But reality is, guy with his injury history, if people didn't want Kristaps, they're not going to want Nurkic. And I get that the 7-footer is something we've been looking towards, but on his short-term contract and the relative amount that he actually provides his team right now in Portland, I don't want to give much more than Boucher and one other kind of rotation piece. That would be my max limit.
Yeah, that's my max as well. And like a lower end valued rotation piece. Right, that's, you brought up Yuta Watanabe's name. I like his potential. I like what he can do, but obviously we have a lot of guys in that similar role, right? You're sort of spot filling. Even if you think Boucher and Yuta are better than Jusuf Nurkic, like I get that argument. I'd probably be on that side of the argument, but you'd make this trade in terms of a spot filler, right? And Nurkic fills a spot that we need on this roster, and then Precious can go to the 4 spot. That's how all that would work. But right, you're not giving up that much, but I do like the idea of targeting Nurkic this offseason, especially if his salary isn't that high, because then you can get him for nothing, right? You obviously got to pay him the contract, but you get him as an unrestricted free agent, so that'd be something cool. I don't think we have to ramble on too much about Jusuf Nurkic. You and I are not super high on him, but we know everyone wants a 7-footer on this Toronto Raptors team, so we had to break it down. But let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Should the Raptors go all in for Jusuf Nurkic? Should we trade Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby? Because those are the deals that the Portland Trailblazers think they're getting for a Nurkic and Covington and all those guys. But, what do you guys think in the comment section below? You're the best. Check out the Instagram, the Twitter, the TikTok, all that cool stuff. Check out the merch. Fresh merch for the holiday season. Ryker, do you have any last words on this potential trade scenario?
Yes, a point I just thought too was I don't think Portland wants to come to the table with the Raptors anyways, because they definitely lost now in retrospect that Gary Trent Jr. trade. especially him signing with the Raptors for basically the same dollar amount that they signed Norman Powell. So they would have had a younger, better defender. People hate when I call Norman the worst defender, but he is slightly worse. And it is what it is.
Now looking at Trent, he's way worse than Trent.
Well, exactly. So it played out well for the Raptors. There's other guys in the market. Jeremy Grant, bring him home. Cheers.